This is going to be a presentation on midterm rentals and converting your property to a midterm rental. Let's take a look. I'm going to go off screen so you can enjoy the presentation without the interruptions. And actually, we're going to kill me. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, this is a presentation on converting your property to a midterm rental, and I'm going to look at the problems and solutions. I'm going to be focusing on real estate in Dallas-Fort Worth area in North Texas. So if you're in another state, please be aware that some populations or some tendencies might be different in your state. But my name is Elena Garrett, and I'm a realtor with Keller Williams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Let's get started. Okay, so first of all, what's the principal difference between midterm and long-term rental? For midterm rentals, you're typically going to be focusing on 1+ months rentals catering to mobile professionals, students, misplaced individuals, etc. We're going to look at the different populations in a second of people who are looking for midterm rentals. Typically, you're going to observe high involvement in daily operations, which means that there is higher need for your day-to-day hands-on involvement in supplies, cleaning, etc. And you're going to be more dependent on seasonal vacancies. So for example, in certain parts of the year, you might have high vacancy situations, but at the same time, you're also going to get higher monthly rents. And the most interesting part is that there is no limit on a rental potential depending on a type of a population whom you target. Compare this to long-term rentals, who are, of course, 12+ months rentals catering to stable households, that you're going to enjoy much more passive income from the long-term rental. And it also leads to lower vacancy. Once you sign a lease for 12 months, unless somebody breaks the lease, you're probably set for the next year, unlike the midterm rentals where you might need to have to find and locate and accommodate a new different tenant with different needs every single month. But with the long-term rentals, you also have a very static market in which your income potential is limited to what we call market rents, which means that people are not going to pay for your rental much more than they pay for the next door rental. And that might not be good enough for you to continue your operations. Okay, let's look at the use cases. Who could benefit from converting their property to a midterm rental? Number one are home sellers who are looking for alternative strategies. For example, they want to sell their home, they need to relocate, but the market is temporarily down and might be down for another several months. In that case, it might be beneficial for them to use the existing furniture or to buy new furniture or buy used furniture to turn their home into a short-term rental to generate cash to maintain their monthly payments, mortgage payments, while the market is improving. Another situation could be landlords who already have rentals, but for whatever reason, the current rental market is just not delivering the type of profit that they were looking for. So they would like to try a midterm rental as a strategy, but they already have an existing location and existing amenities. Another use case could be owner occupant. So for example, I believe that this strategy could really help some seniors who are struggling to maintain the payments on their home or the upkeep on their home by bringing in people who could move into empty rooms and therefore provide the income needed to supplement the seniors' Social Security or other pension payments, and also provide money for maintenance, repairs, etc. And also another category of people who could benefit are, of course, investors who are looking to see how they can get into the market with already high, let's just say high property taxes, high insurance, high cost of acquisition, and still maintain profitable operations. So those investors could turn to midterm rentals as a way of generating profitable investments in a high cost area. When does conversion to a midterm rental actually make sense? There is no such thing as one size fits all. In a midterm rental market, there is many different variables that could affect the likelihood of your midterm rental becoming a high payoff endeavor, because in many cases the midterm rental comes with a higher rent but also higher management cost, and you need to kind of look at the pluses and minuses of your proposition before you decide if it makes sense. So the most important item on the when it makes sense kind of to-do list is location. So we're going to look at the map of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in a second, and I'm going to kind of pinpoint some areas where I think are excellent locations for midterm rentals and not so excellent. So we'll look at the locations in a second, but overall, the closer you are to the center of any kind of economic activity, which are hospitals, office buildings, commercial organizations, some plants that, let's just say power plants that hire workers, or any kind of development activity in an area that might need temporary staff. Staff does not need to be there for several years, but who come and goes, like colleges, schools, hospitals, the more likely your midterm rental have high demand on your facility. At the same time, if you're very far away, now also some locations are like lakes and mountains, etc. Those might be good for short-term rentals because those are scenic places where people like to go to gather, but they may not necessarily be magnets for midterm rentals, simply because people who stay in midterm rentals are spending a lot of money, much higher rent on your property monthly. Where that income coming from? There got to be an income source for them to stay in your area and be able to maintain your higher monthly payments. Budget and financing. So of course, everything is a kind of like calculation of what are going to be your expenses, including maintenance, upkeep, and cleaning, versus what's going to be potential rents. And also, what is your financing? So for example, if you are in a short-term hard money loan that is ending in 2 to 3 months, then unless you have ways to refinance that loan, then setting up a short-term rental may not be beneficial. If you're on a long-term, let's just say that you have 30-year loan or 5-year loan, then of course it's much easier to create a sustainable operation. Also, speaking of budget, you also need to remember that to set up a midterm rental, you will need some expenses. So for example, you need to buy furniture, supplies, you'll need to pay cleaning workers and maintenance workers before you make a single penny. So where will that money come from? Do you have a source of income? Do you have credit card or a business credit card that you can tap into to make that setup possible? Unit size. I would say that the extremes on both sides are not going to be helpful. So if your unit is very small, let's just say under 13 to 1500 square feet, or if your unit is very large, let's just say, 3,000, 5,000 square feet, you may not benefit from midterm rentals as much as people in the middle will, because both extremes tend to have narrow use case scenarios. Very few families need 5,000 square feet in order to do a short-term stay, and at the same time, a very tiny place is going to exclude a lot of tenants who need a little bit more space to work and live. For that reason, I would say that in my opinion, the most profitable operations are going to be on units, let's just say 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, maybe 2,500 square feet. To me, those are good rentals, unless you're targeting a very high-end market, in which, of course, the unit size could be bigger. But also, having 1-bedroom places and 5-bedroom places or 6-bedroom places may also not be that much more advantageous, simply because you are limiting the type of populations who are looking for houses of that size. And by limiting the number of people who could potentially rent your place, you're also limiting the potential rent income potential. Another serious consideration is city and HOA restrictions. From the standpoint of the city restrictions, many cities have occupancy restrictions. For example, no more than 4 unrelated adults per property. In that case, if you're in a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom house, that may not be a problem. But if you are, for example, in a 6-bedroom home, then your property will be underutilized if your city had this kind of restriction. And of course, HOA restrictions, you check with your HOA bylaws to make sure that there is no restrictions on short-term or midterm rentals, or you running a business out of your house. So remember, when you're running a midterm rental, you're actually running a business. It's not even a true rental. You're running a hotel-like operation, and chances are your neighbors are not going to be too keen on constantly seeing people occupying their parking spaces or crowding the streets with their cars. So for that reason, if you do live in an HOA, consider whether or not it's going to run well, but go well with your HOA once they find out that you have a mini hotel operating out of your unit. And then parking and access. So in my opinion, the most profitable midterm rentals are going to be those that are 1 story. If you have a 1-story rental, you can accommodate pretty much everybody, no matter what their mobility potential is. If you have a 2-story rental, it might exclude some people from being able to rent your place because of their hips, knees, whatever other issues that they might have. And also, if you are in a situation where there is very little parking in front of your unit and people have to park pretty far away to come to your unit, that will also limit your ability to find and retain tenants, because in most cases, people want to have quick accessibility and convenience of off-street parking. Okay, let's look at the audiences who would be interested in midterm rentals. Now, remember that your audience, your target audience, will drive your location. So depending on which audience you decide to target, for example, if you already have a house and your location is fixed, then you can look through this list and see what kind of audiences could be the most likely people who will be interested in your rental. If you have not selected the location yet, and you're just considering buying a short-term rental, or I'm sorry, midterm rental, then you can look through this list and decide whom can I target, who will really give me the lowest amount of trouble from a standpoint of management and the highest occupancy, while maintaining high profitability. Okay, so let's look at who we have: students, corporate sponsors, temporary assignments. Okay, students are going to be gravitating more to areas that have some kind of campuses, schools, etc. Corporate sponsor temporary assignments. Now that could be anywhere, because you have many kind of employers who sometimes need to bring people in on a 3 to 6 months basis to do some kind of an audit, to do some kind of a project. So the corporate sponsors, temporary assignees, are really the most mobile of them all, and you can always count on them to fill any kind of location. Short-term contractors, digital nomads, young couples. Now I see a lot of young couples among my personal midterm rental tenants, and they just tend to have very low interest in buying their own furniture or paying their own utilities. They want to see high internet, they want to see big TVs, they want to see accessibility to gyms and entertainment and clubs, but they do not want responsibilities associated with maintaining their own. Divorce situations, insurance displacements, people relocating to the area. So for example, even if you're in a difficult area, let's just say you're pretty far away from big commercial centers, you can count on people who might be relocating to your area but have not decided where in your city they want to buy to be your midterm rental tenants, because they might be exploring the area while staying at your property. People with credit issues, contractors and their teams, legal professionals on case assignments, sports, arts, and political workers, people who are in recovery from some kind of medical procedure, and also families of medical patients, military families, teachers and professors, governmental workers. So there's a lot of cases where female workers or people who are working on a specific governmental assignments become tenants in a midterm rental property. People on a government support program. So there are many government support programs that help to pay for people's housing. and those people may not necessarily have enough of a payment to buy to rent an entire house. So midterm rental room by room becomes their choice. Assisted living homes. Now that's a whole different ball game. Assisted living homes is something that you can run out of your own home, or you can have independent seniors who are staying at your home. But assisted living homes is the one type of midterm rental that's almost like a business within a business. Halfway houses. So similar to assisted living homes, who receive maybe Medicare or Medicaid checks for their stay in your house, halfway houses would be a business strategy targeting people who receive governmental funds in order to stay in some kind of educational recovery or rehabilitation programs, and the government pays for their stay for a certain number of months, and those checks are typically pretty generous. And then alcohol and drug recovery. Same thing with as halfway homes. You're targeting people in very specific situations. They might have funds coming from some kind of either governmental support program, or their families are willing to pay for their stay there away from their normal environment. But those are very specific cases. Of course, in most cases, you're going to be focusing on the general population. Okay, let's look at the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I can briefly mention which area I have personally observed being in Dallas-Fort Worth area and operating a midterm rental in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which areas I have observed to be in the highest demand. Of course, the highest demand of them all is Dallas. And what I would say that if you are a happy owner of somewhere close to Greenville, areas that require no cars, and there's a lot of public transportation close to downtown. Of course, those are going to be prime areas for people who came here to work, to either study. We have a lot of students studying there, like SMU area, etc., or governmental workers who work in downtown. And they do not want to own a car. They want quick accessibility to either the rail or the subway or the bus stations. So those are going to be like the highest demand areas, period, no matter what. Then a little bit further out, we have Irving. Irving is very popular. Anything close to the airport, which is Irving, Coppell, in even Arlington in some cases, you're going to see people who are in some way or another frequent travelers, and they just need to maintain a room in order to close to the airport in order to periodically show up there, live there for a week or two, and then disappear again for a couple of weeks. So we have Irving and DFW Airport as very high interest areas in the midterm rental. Then do not discount the areas like Frisco and Plano, because those are high-tech communities that very often have workers who are either out of state or even out of country. They might be being flown in from India or some other support center in order to have a temporary work assignment in Plano, in Frisco, in McKinney. So you have this high-tech corridor in this area. What I'm observing is that Balch Springs, Mesquite, Garland attract a lot of workers from Hispanic communities, attract a lot of workers who are roofers, contractors, different types of trucking operations, people who are frequently in the area, but not necessarily continuously in your place. And also very often you have a team lead who hires or who rents a midterm rental for several months because he knows that he's going to have multiple teams coming in and out of your house. So instead of having just one or two people who are stable in there, he might be frequently changing people who are staying at your place because he runs a team of people who are traveling back and forth between assignments. Fort Worth, I really don't have that much more information about Fort Worth than I don't have as much information about Fort Worth because I just don't have a rental there. But I would imagine that whatever goes for Dallas will go for Fort Worth as well. The closer you're to downtown, where less need for cars, more public transportation, the better it is for governmental workers or people who are studying, etc., working in the downtown. And the further away you are, like let's just say Roanoke or Saginaw or ASL, the more likely you're going to be looking at people who are remote workers, mobile professionals, and also the closer you are to any kind of hospitals, the more likely you are to be able to score nurses, doctors, surgery recovery patients, and families of medical patients. Also, let's not forget the military personnel. So if you're close to some kind of military facility, you might be targeting those people. Okay, and also last but not least, condition of the home. Does your home need to be super updated to become a midterm rental? It does not need to be very updated. It could be very unupdated. It could be really in a pretty much 1950s, 1970s still theme with, dark forest green carpets, as long as your price really reflects the condition of the home. The higher you want your price of the room of the property to be, the more updated and the more amenities you need to provide. So if you have dark forest green carpets and wallpaper and outdated furniture and features, then you're going to still be able to find tenants. It's just those tenants are not going to be young professionals. They're not going to be students or lawyers on assignment. They're going to be people who, for whatever reason, maybe they have difficult credit situation. Maybe they're in the middle of a divorce, and for the moment they don't really care what their room or property looks like. But it's going to be people who are in a constrained position. Their finances are going to be constrained. They might be missing payments. You might be struggling to collecting your rent from time to time, but you can still do a midterm rental. If you are fully updated house with glistening countertops, a pool, etc., you're going to be more likely to attract these high-paying professionals like lawyers, artists, sport professionals, etc., who will be interested in renting your property. Now, almost any condition goes, of course, given the fact that you don't have black mold, you don't have running leaks, although I've seen short-term midterm rentals with running leaks. Assuming that your rent is low enough, people will be able to stay there. You need to have obviously heat and AC, and you need to have running water. And I would say a very good running water. So one thing that you need to remember is that with midterm rentals, you're going to have higher usage of electrical because you're going to have people who come, especially if they're mobile professionals, they might have 5, 6 computers, they might have 16 devices in their home. So your electrical cannot be dilapidated. You cannot be constantly throwing off a breaker just because another device was plugged in while the dishwasher was running. So your electrical needs to be stellar, your plumbing needs to be stellar, and your AC and your heat needs to be stellar. Everything else is negotiable. However, no matter what the condition of your home is, before it can become a truly functional midterm rental, at least some small changes will be needed, and funds for the small changes will be needed. If you have any questions, I do specialize in midterm rentals. I currently own a midterm rental in Mesquite. If you have any questions about how to set up a midterm rental, here is my contact information, and I will see you guys at the next video.